Are you looking for a straightforward, no-nonsense approach to adding 2 to 3 buyer deals per month? If so, I've got some great strategies in this video. I'll give you some tools and some scripts that you can use to actually make that happen. This video forms part of my Agent Success Blueprint, where we're covering specifically everything to do with buyers. This video is either for the individual agent, or an agent that has a team and wants to pass this on to the buyers, or a broker that's looking to pass this as a training on to their buyers. My ask is that you hear me all the way through to the end, and I'm confident that by the end of this recording, you're gonna have some strategies to be able to close more buyer business. If you find value, please comment and let me know what takeaways are most beneficial or what strategies you can go ahead and use right away. I will break this buyer blueprint into 2 parts. The first is gonna be where you actually get these buyers from, and the second is gonna be what you have to say specifically to be able to convert more of these calls into actual closings. Part 1, where do you get these buyers from? The first is gonna be sign calls, whether they're your signs or another agent from your office that has a lot of signs out there that they basically can't service those calls. You could work out some type of agreement with them where you pay them some type of referral fee if you end up successfully closing a buyer that they referred you. Open houses. These could be your own open houses or an agent in your office that has a lot of listings. Many top producing agents, they will not physically sit in the open house, but if you offer to do it, they'll be glad to have you there. This is also a servicing piece for them to where they're appeasing their client, and at the same time, it gives you the ability to generate buyer leads. You could also ask your broker who in the office has a lot of listings that you can hold the open houses for them, and who knows, maybe they may be able to pass you on to somebody. Last but not least, pick up the phone, right? You can circle prospect in specific neighborhoods. You can call old expireds and for sale by owners, right? FSBOs. You can call them and ask them if they don't want to have assistance with them selling their own house. Where are you moving to next? Once this property is sold, are you looking locally or perhaps you're looking out of town? If they are looking locally, you can say, are you committed to an agent who's helping you find, or are you looking on your own? And if they say that they're looking on their own, tell them that you'd be glad to help them find a property and you've got a buyer right there. And from these calls, the bonus is at the end of the day, you can actually pick up listings from making these calls. Part 2, now we get to the good stuff. Have you ever been to a showing? You schedule the appointment, you meet the buyer there, they love the house, you call them, and they never return your phone call. Or have you you schedule a showing and the buyer arrives with another agent, even though they had specifically told you that they didn't have an agent? Stop the madness. I've got 3 words for you: scripts, scripts, and scripts. This is a 3-step process. The first is gonna be a pre-qual. You're basically getting some super basic information over the phone, and the most important thing that you're getting on this phone call, one is to make sure they're pre-approved, and the second thing is that they're not committed to an agent. And what's the ultimate goal with this phone call? Set an appointment. This appointment is first step number 2, which is the buyer consultation, which you can do this over Zoom, Google Meet, whatever platform you're using, or in person. And in this appointment, you're basically going to go through everything it is that they're looking for, from the amount of bedrooms, baths, location, square footage, lot size, pool, any of their needs, whatever their wants are. You go through all of it. And at the end of this, which is, for us, it's a 3-page document. At the end, I'll do an MLS search. So based on everything that they just mentioned to us, we go ahead and we execute the search. And as we look at it, there's been instances where the person has expectations that they want a property for a certain price point, and based on the very limited results, which in some cases could be 1, 2, just 3 properties, which they don't like any of them, they come to the realization that they need to increase their price point. If you would have tried to have this conversation with them over the phone, increasing their price point, they wouldn't buy it. But once they see it in person, you've gone through the effort, they'll typically they may need to bump the price a little bit as far as to what they were looking for. Last but not least, the 3rd step is going to be the buyer agreement. You can obtain this buyer agreement from either the broker from your office, or maybe your local MLS may have the forms there that you can pull it from. So this agreement could be whatever time period you want. It could be 7 days, 14 days, 21, 28, 60 days, 3 months, whatever the number is. I typically would use 21 days. I felt comfortable with it. And the truth is, if I haven't found them something in 21 days, something's wrong. Either we're not doing work on our side, or there just isn't something that's in their price point. More often than not, if you're doing your job and they're happy with the service, they'll extend it, or you don't even need to extend it in writing. They're committed to you at that point. So I had mentioned in the beginning of this video that I would provide you with scripts, and we're going to go ahead and just run one really quickly. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm 100% committed to helping you and your family find whatever they're looking for, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in this specific neighborhood by June 1st, whatever their date was. I'm 100% committed to you. All that I ask is that you commit to me in return. What do I mean by that, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? Is if you drive by a for sale sign, whether it's a for sale by owner or a real estate sign from another company, that you provide me with that information and I'll gladly do the legwork. I'll reach out to those companies or that for sale by owner and go ahead and schedule the appointment and confirm all the details for you, the size of the house, run some numbers for you if you'd like to know what homes are selling for in the area. I will do all of that. What I ask is that you sign this agreement. This is basically approving, authorizing us to work together for the next 21 days. And as my coach Aaron in the past has said, you hush, breathe, and listen. Okay, so those are the 3 steps. Now let me tell you, based on those 3 steps, what agents typically tell me when I go through this process with them. The pre-qual, what if they're not pre-approved? What I say is, okay, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, in order for us to show you this property, the seller most likely is going to want to make sure that you're qualified to see the home. The agent that has that listing may not even allow us to schedule the showing unless you're pre-approved. Let's go ahead and do this. Once you're pre-approved, we know exactly how much you qualify for. You're going to know how much your monthly payment is, how much you would need to close. Then we can go ahead and schedule the appointment. Once we schedule that appointment, we can also set a buyer consultation. If in fact that home is not for you, we can find multiple other properties for you. How does that sound? Good? Great. So them not being pre-approved, that one is crushed. Next. What if they don't want to meet with you after you ask to schedule the buyer consultation? They're probably not finding enough value in what it is that you've said so far. So you may need to reiterate their motivation, right? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you said that you're looking to move into, in a home in North Miami Beach by July 1st. Is that correct? Yes. In order to make that happen, we would have to schedule an appointment. Is Tuesday at 3 or is Friday at 5 best for you? See what they have to say. If they don't want to meet with you, just move on to the next potential buyer. Another response from agents is a buyer would never sign a buyer agreement in this market. Well, yes and yes. A buyer will sign the agreement if they see value in the buyer service that you're providing for them. And the second part of, as far as to the market, buyers sign these in every single market in the country. There's no reason why they wouldn't if they see value in what you're doing. So at the end of your presentation, what if the buyer does not want to sign the buyer agreement? Ask them to leave and get the hell out of your office. Just kidding. No, seriously, don't say that. I would say I can appreciate that you don't want to commit to me as an agent. I, in return, am unable to commit to you and to put the time that it takes to help you find the best home for you and your family by X date for Y reason, right? Just fill in their motivation in there. And if they can't commit, then you may want to say, I'm not the best fit for you. You may want to work with another agent. Thank you for coming by. Pleasure meeting you, and bye. My experience has been most will sign this buyer agreement. And if they don't want to sign it, it's probably better to have wasted 30 to 60 minutes with this person or with this family, as opposed to putting in countless hours, days, weeks, and in some cases, even months with a buyer who's not going to commit. If a buyer is working with you and you have no commitment with them, and they drive by a sign and they call that agent or that for sale by owner and they buy that house, you are completely out of the loop. You do that enough times, you start thinking to yourself, what am I going to do differently? And this is an approach that's different, super effective, and it works. Last is, these agreements are not enforceable. It may or may not be. I don't know. I've never tried to go to a court and enforce one of these buyer agreements. What I can tell you is I had a buyer that we were working with, and she calls me up one day and she says, I've got great news. And by the way, when a client tells you that they have great news, be worried. She says, I have great news. I said, what? What is it? She says, I found a house. I said, no kidding. Good for you. Where did you find it? She tells me the name of the community. It was a very, very large builder, one of the larger builders in the country. I said, great. So I know who the builder is. Which community was it? She tells me the name of the community. And I said, all right, awesome. Congratulations. I'm so glad that you found a property. So I hung up. I called that sales office. I asked for the manager. I found out who the person was that signed this contract. And I called that person and I said, I have an exclusive buyer agreement with this buyer. Any property that she purchases, I'm entitled to a 3% commission. Long story short, I was able to collect I think it was about $12,000 or $13,000 commission just for having this buyer agreement signed, right? So in this case, it really paid off for me. In the long run, if you do enough of these, if some slip through the cracks, if a person decides to want to do what they want to do and cut you out, what are you going to do? But 90 to 95% of the time, you will be compensated in instances where you previously wouldn't have if you wouldn't have gone through all of these steps. When my wife was more active in real estate, she would follow this system to the T. She'd probably have anywhere from 4 to 5 of these agreements signed at any given time, and she'd close 2 to 3 transactions per month working part-time. This system works. The question becomes, are you going to work this system? I hope this content has been helpful for you. If you feel that somebody could benefit from this buyer consultation process, please go ahead and share it with them. If you'd like more info on how I could help you grow your business with strategies just as you saw here today, please feel free to reach out to me by way of DM or at the contact information shown in the description.